Hello, once again. Welcome to Nebula Pod with Isaac, and this is the another episode talking about different types of topics, numerology, astrology, and all other relevant topics that are going on in our world. Stay with me and we discuss together. Welcome to Nebula Pod with Isaac. So today we're going to talk about some of the controversial topics that are going on in human world. What I can say, knowledge. What is knowledge? To me, I can define that knowledge is power. Why do I say knowledge is power? Whomever or any person that controls knowledge is the one who has the power against any rule or anybody on this planet. Why am I saying so? So, for example, let's take among the superior nations around the world, America, for example, and many other superior countries. Like, for example, the rising country right now, as we all know, one of the most developing country rapidly is China. So, if you analyze these countries, what do they have more compared to other countries? You realize it's knowledge on everything, knowledge on politics, knowledge on scientific matters, knowledge on history. And when I talk about history, I'm talking about the real history. Okay? So when I say knowledge is power, and let's look at the list or the most underdeveloping countries, including a continent like Africa. What does Africa has or lack that do not put it in a global phenomenon or a global superiority? So I can say different types of history that are going on or things that have been happening, including the knowledge itself that I'm talking about. Okay? So it's going to be quite a controversial topic, but it's going to help us to develop as human how we evolve from one stage to another, as I can say. So one of the things that disturbs, or one of the things that once you observe it is disturbing the most, it's some of the continents or some of the countries losing their original identity. Okay, in different types of scenarios. So let's say today, let's talk about belief systems. Too many dictionaries, you can look towards it. What does the word belief mean? So to me, belief is, I can say, or I can summarize it, once you believe something, it means you don't know that thing. Belief and knowledge, it's two different things. It's either you believe in something you have knowledge about, or you believe in something that you literally have no knowledge about. So if it happens you believe something that you have no knowledge about, that's still called ignorance. I repeat that again. Believing, you can believe something that you're knowledgeable about, which is okay. And if you believe something that you have no knowledge about, that's still ignorance. And in different perspective, most people fall under ignorancy. They believe in something that they have no literally knowledge about, or something that they've been told. They have been told, but they have no the urge of research, of doing their own research, or try to understand at one point or another on this particular matter. So if we observe in the history of several countries, especially African countries, what most of the African countries have in common is to be conquered in many centuries by different types of powers. Different types of powers that have been conquering Africa is what defines Africa today. So I will give a roughly summarize of every country and its history. If you go to Southeast Asian countries, they have their own culture, they have their own way of life, and they have their own means on solving particular problems in their societies. If you go to countries in South America, also they have their own literally culture and belief system that those countries define themselves by those kind of belief system. But if you visit in a continent like Africa, for example, you will find a very diverse kind of culture and a very diverse kind of belief system. It's either you'll find different type of religion that were brought by other nations. So once you lack knowledge, remember, knowledge is power. As I said, the ones who holds the knowledge is the one who conquers or is the one who rules a certain society. So most of the countries that are underdeveloped, what they lack is the real or true knowledge on how to solve variety and particular problems in the society. So, for example, let's give a look at developed countries and underdeveloped countries. What do these developed countries have that underdeveloped countries do not have? If you realize its superiority, either these countries have been long time conquering or have been superior to these underdeveloping countries. And once you conquer or rule somebody, that means there is something that, or a secret that you will hide. There is a secret that you will hide to your inferior to not know in order you continue ruling them. I repeat that again. The difference between developed countries and underdeveloped countries. What do underdeveloped countries lack? The developed countries are superior to underdeveloped countries. And if you go back in history, these developed countries mostly had a rule or controlled part of these underdeveloped countries. And what do underdeveloped countries lack? We go back again. They lack true knowledge. Knowledge in all aspects. Knowledge in science, knowledge in true history, knowledge even in the belief system. So the most developed countries, technically, they will feed them what they want these underdeveloped countries to know. So for these underdeveloped countries, in order to break that vicious cycle, to break that barrier, is to put a blockage on these narratives given or influenced by the developed countries. That's the only way underdeveloped countries can find their own ways in order to remove themselves from poverty and all aspects that keep them under and inferior in this global stage. But unfortunately, there is a huge weapon that is always used by developed nations. It has been used through centuries. For example, when we come to faith and beliefs, through the Roman Empire, it's when Christianity was widely spread. During the Ottoman Empire, it's the time Islam was widely spread. And that's not a lie. That's a fact. So whomever in these underdeveloped nations believe in the narratives brought to them by the most developed or the superior nations, remember that any superior will not give you the secrets on what made them powerful in order to control you. Unfortunately, all these underdeveloped countries fall in this trap. They take all the knowledge that they're given by these nations that claim to be superior to them. Unfortunately, what happens here, there is no master that will give you the secret he uses to make you their slaves. Technically, if they teach you the whole knowledge and teach you on how to take care of yourself, technically you won't depend on them anymore. And that's not the idea. The idea is to conquer you and to rule you for the rest of the time of this existence. So when I say knowledge is power, when you're told or when you're narrated something or when you're taught something, one of the things that we have in common as humans, it's the mind. We all have the mind to analyze, reason, and think. So what happens when some other people know beyond than the others? There we go again. Nobody is born all knowing. That means we all learn, we all obtain knowledge on our throughout our existence. So once you lack knowledge, you automatically put yourself in a position to be ruled. Since the one who always have knowledge, they will technically be superior to the one who don't. And that's principles. And that's what's going on in this world today. So most of these superior nations have something that they know about the true existence and the history of this world compared to underdeveloped nations. So at one point or another, we all go back to knowledge. So before you believe in something or before you're taught something, try to reason. Try to reason. So for example, most of the countries that lack identity, they possess identity that was brought to them by other superior nations, and that's the truth. So, for example, in Africa, during the colonization times, all these missionaries that came from across the world, they brought knowledge, they brought education, they brought religion itself. Hence, until today, that is what these nations have invested into. So the tricky question here is, when do you think once who was your slave master to give you the secrets to liberate yourself? There is nothing like that. So it's about time whereby if you want to remove yourself from a long-term chain that has been implanted to these societies, either through thinking or the way these societies operate, one thing they have to liberate themselves is it's mentally and through knowledge. Receiving knowledge, or knowledge is everywhere. Wake up from the long-term sleep that you've been put on by your superiors. So through history, to countries or continents like Africa, for example, Africa had its own identity, had its own the way of life, belief system, and the way they operate. Until the superiors, or I can say the now superior nations, came and brought different types of knowledge that Africans forgot to research or claim back their true identity. And that's what make these underdeveloped countries stuck to the moment. Even the education system that is provided now in African countries, for example, it's an education system that was once or orchestrated or built by these superior nations, the nations that Africa depend on currently. So you can never or you cannot liberate yourself with the same knowledge that your superior or your masters gave it to you or once brought it to your society. So there is different types of civilizations that existed back then. If you read through history, and once the most longest civilization that ever existed, we are talking about the Sumerian civilization, the Babylonian civilization, Chinese civilization has been there. It means their knowledge that has been existing in this civilization. And that knowledge helped this civilization to prosper, including the Egyptian civilization. But today, the Egypt of today is no longer the Egypt of back then. Because, for example, the Egypt of today had a lot of knowledge that is missing right now. Take, for example, the pyramids. Until now, there is no the actual knowledge or where the pyramids were built or how they were built. And speaking of the pyramids are everywhere, different types of countries. So this is the knowledge that existed back then through history. There is pyramids in Egypt, there is pyramids in China, there is pyramids in Mexico. What does that bring or make you reason? So it means that we all have to have our own research knowledge that will lead us to the liberation of these, or through the real revelation mentally, psychologically, of these inferior countries, in order to be able to lead themselves and conquer themselves or rule themselves. Otherwise, forever the superior countries will forever be superior, and the inferior countries, they will forever be inferior until a decision is made. We have examples of nations that truly liberated themselves through the ancient knowledge that they ever possessed and blocked the influence from superior countries. So before you believe in something, try to analyze and reason about that particular thing before you become pro-believer. So I'll give you an example. If you are born in India, you'll technically probably be a Hindu as your belief system. If you're born in the Middle East, technically a high chance you will be a Muslim according to the belief system of that particular region. If you're born in Southeast Asian countries, including India, partial of it, you may turn to be a Buddhist according to the type of belief system that particular area. Regardless the ethnic or on what race you're born in that particular area. I can be an African, but if I'm born in India and India is all what I know, technically, I grew up through the belief system of Hinduism. I'll be a Hindu. So what does that make you believe that your own faith or your own belief system is the real one? Does it mean the others are not? Or are you believing because you were raised in that particular belief system? Let's go to Africa, for example. What identity does African countries have? Most of Africans are either Christians or Muslims, a few Hindus, and some other religions. Where is the true identity of Africa? What is the true identity belief system of Africans? Then we go back to what knowledge is. So before you become pro-religion, religions that are brought with superior nations or superior civilization back then, in order to conquer the way you think, the way you interpret, the way you reason, ask yourself questions. What is my true identity? That's it for today. Welcome to Nebula Pod with Isaac. Until the next episode, please don't forget to subscribe, like, share, and please leave your comment. Will help us to grow the page. Thank you. Until next time.